Good day, everyone, especially to you, Miss Edlen Telili. I am Jemmer Lori E. Sapia-an. The topic that I was report today is all about a stewardship of our ecology. Principles of ecology. A century ago, a German biologist by the name of Ernst Haeckel coined the word ecology. The prefix eco comes from the same Greek word oikos, which has been foundational in this study of stewardship. The old definition of ecology is the economy of animals and plants. But now, it has come to mean the science of the relations between organisms and their environment. So, if we want to become better stewards of the earth, better economists, we need to gain insights from the science of ecology. The findings of ecology help us understand how we can best administer the earth's resources as God's stewards. So, ecology is an exceedingly complex study, but despite its diversity, certain themes or key principles stands out. The created world has limits. Psalm 74:17, Proverbs 8 to 7 to 29. The Tinajeros River and Malabon is dead river. The stink from the river can. So be smelled right as you approach it. The river is unsafe even for bathing and no living creatures can access in its putrid water. And yet, all residents who live near its bank remember the days when they as children would bath in the river and catch dalag or mudfish, hito or catfish, and shrimp. So, what killed the Tinajeros River? So it has become the dumping site for wastewater coming from factories and homes along the river banks. Everybody believed that river could tolerate this constant dumping of sewage. Slowly, however, the water became toxic. Finally, it reached the point when the water was deprived of all life-giving oxygen until it died. For example, the Earth's atmosphere with its oxygen is essential to animal and human life. Yet, although the blankets of Earth that surround the Earth are several hundreds of kilometers thick, the fire to bathe, that really supports life. The atmosphere is only 10 kilometers high. Every fire we make, every engine that runs consume this oxygen. So those gradually we are depleting the atmosphere supply of precious gas which is necessary in the life of insects, fishes, birds, and people. So if the supply of oxygen was limited, there would have been no problem. But is it where do we even get oxygen? So plants are cheap source of oxygen. So tree would have been no problem. So the more plants, the more oxygen. So the opposite is also true. Every plant cut and every tree fell reduce the production of oxygen. At the rate our forest is being cleared of trees, the amount of oxygen in the air is being reduced drastically. Thank God, land plants are not our chief source of oxygen. Most of the oxygen in the atmosphere is manufactured by microscopic plants living in the ocean called plankton. But a danger worse than our indiscriminate logging has come. As more and more nations become industrialized, they dump savage and chemicals into the ocean. More pesticides drain from farmland into the ocean. Even worse are herbicides, chemicals that kill small plants. Every hour, every day, more and more toxic chemicals flow into the world oceans, depriving this and of more and more plankton, which is our chief source of oxygen. All parts of the created world are dependent with one another. Psalms 104:25 to 20. For example, man seems to be independent, but are we? Where do we get food? From plants and animals. Animals get their food from plants, and some of them, even from other animals and plants, cannot manufacture food without the aid of the sun. So, because we are creatures of God, we have limitations. Only God is infinite and limitless. It is true we are free moral agents, but God has set limits to our actions. These limits are not for our destruction, but for our good. God is forever saying to man and woman and affects, here are the limits. Abide by them according to my purposes, and you will live. Disregard them, and you will die. So, what ecology is saying is that the myriad forms of life, which make up our universe, are not independent, unrelated parts but one interrelated whole. From our Christian standpoint, they constitute one created order. What attribute of God's is exalted in Psalm 104:14 to 30? The author praises God for his wisdom in creation. Wisdom in the Old Testament is associated with skill. When the psalmist talks about God creating the world in wisdom, he means the intricate skill with which God places everything in order. As a master craftsman does in building a house, every part has a purpose and it's necessary to support another. So, if God has placed man in the position of a stewardship over his creator order, it would imply freedom to rearrange and demonstrate some of the wildness that we see in nature. However, any change has to be made with the understanding of how things relate to one another. For example, it is well known that the Nile River has been the resource of fertile soil along its banks. For nearly 4,000 years, Egypt was the granary of the Mediterranean world. But in 1902, a dam was built at Aswan to prevent the disastrous spring flood and permit year-round irrigation. So, the dam was meant to benefit more people and bring land under cultivation. But what really happened? The flow of the Nile was reduced by the dam. As a result, seawater backed up and ruined more fields that were benefited by the irrigation system. In addition, the flow of Nelly water to new farmland is aiding the spread of the dreaded disease called schistosomiasis. All behavior has consequences. Genesis 3:14-19. These are two factors that stand in the way of our making life-changing behavior. So first, we sacrifice future's benefit for present comfort and convenience. It is easier to throw garbage in the river than to bury it. It's easier to use chemical fertilizer than to prepare natural fertilizer from animals. We don't like cockroaches and mosquitoes in our homes, so we spray chemical insecticides. If everything in the created orders is an interdependent, it follows that every act will have consequences. From the ecological viewpoint, the one act of disobedience at the Garden of Eden was not a small, insignificant act. Genesis 3:14-19. It set in motion forces that disturb the balance of the entire created order. That one act affected man's relationship with God, with himself, with others, and with the earth. Secondly, there is the problem of greed. Every year, the Agusan River overflows its banks, bringing great destruction. The cause is that too much forest has already been cleared. Instead of being absorbed, rainwater flows to the river and hindered. But has the root of this problem been addressed? The answer is no, because logging is a profitable business. There is a great demand for Philippine lumbers here and abroad. Anyway, the floods cannot harm the homes of logging people who live elsewhere. Ecology is not neutral matter. Sooner or later, it will point an accusing finger at human covetousness. The stewardship of the earth forces us to look at our habits, our methods of work, and the way we use our resources. We need to ask ourselves what irresponsible habits of mind need to be changed. God has made us so we can influence one another for good. Every change for good in our town or barangay happens because someone initiated it. The same is true with the conservation of our seas and land and air. We can help our family and our community by changing our wasteful ways and doing into ones that help conserve our natural resources. This, were, this was hard work to do on top of his job as a doctor. But he kept on until after several years, the whole area was covered with trees. Little by little, birds began to come back and the water level increased in the ground. Soil began to build on top of the gravel until grass could be planted. That bare mountainside became a beautiful cool park for birds, a mesmerizing image that resulted from the vision and hard work of one doctor.